one thing that I realized was that I won't quit and I won't break, no matter what. And no one is going to be there to tell me, please don't break. That was what I was made of.
Like millions of people around the world, we need to work. Some do it for the money, others do it for the recognition. And if you're lucky, you do it because you love it. But finding purpose and passion in your work can be easier said than done, and the path to success can be unpredictable at best. But if you're looking for some inspiration, then I've got one question for you. Are you consuming your career, or is it consuming you? Welcome to Consuming Careers. When life punches you in the face and demands every ounce of your energy and attention to persevere, how would you respond? Hi, I'm Bruce Smith, and in this week's episode of Consuming Careers, we sit down with Anthony Roman, who shares how his life has been shaped by unexpected obstacles and how those challenges left him no alternative but to dig deep to find the grit of his character, which ultimately fueled his ability to focus on the things that truly matter in his life and his career. So let's jump right into my interview with Anthony. You good? You ready?
I'm good. Yep.
Okay, don't be afraid to eat, because this is some good-looking food right here.
This is.
All right, well, welcome back to the Consuming Careers podcast, and this is going to be a unique one. So I've got my good friend Anthony Roman with me. Good afternoon, Anthony.
Hey, Bruce. Good afternoon.
This is great. Oh, my gosh. You know, I really should have made this like a virtual reality podcast, because I'm going to ask you to describe, where are we? What is this place that you've chosen?
So this is your inaugural visit to the almighty NFA Burger in Dunwoody, Georgia. NFA is an acronym. They don't mess around, and I'll leave that as the allusion to what the
not messing around.
Not messing around. And it's inside a Chevron. So first off,
That's
rule
so
number
classic.
one: if you're getting food out of a gas station and there's usually a line out the door, you're in the right place. But the seating is outside, so makes it interesting when it's raining or adverse weather conditions.
Yeah.
We happen to be blessed today in November, and it's sunny and temperate. So
Gosh, it's great. It's
I know.
like 65 maybe, a little cloudy, just a beautiful day. When I got here at like 12:30, the line, there had to be 20 people in line.
Not kidding.
In a tiny little Chevron.
Yeah.
You know, waiting for a burger.
Yeah.
I love it. I'm so excited to dig into this.
Yes.
All right. Well, great choice of location, and I'm going to encourage everybody to come here who's in earshot. But let's start off with, would you just 30 seconds, like, who are you now? What are you doing? Just a quick bio.
Sure. Encapsulate your life in 30 seconds.
That's
Go.
right. Ready, go.
Yeah. So I'll probably start at the end, and then we'll develop as we go on. But
Yep.
I'm a father. I'm a husband, and my professional career has always been around talent and recruiting. When people ask me what I do, I just say it's recruiting. It's the easiest way and simplest way. Nobody cares about titles, right?
Right.
And that is what I've done. I'm originally from New England, born in Connecticut, went to school in Rhode Island, worked between Boston and Rhode Island for my first 10 years, moved down to Georgia in 2007.
Yeah.
And haven't looked back since. New England is fantastic to visit. Love it up there. Just better living down here for me personally.
I'm
no
with
offense
you.
to the people in the other regions of your podcast.
Well, I did the same thing, right? So I came down here in '83 from Ohio, and just never looked back. So love it down here. Love I don't know. I just love the whole culture, vibe,
People.
weather,
Yes.
just all the climate, trees. It's just a great town.
It is.
So we're loving it. Okay. So you grew up in what, Bridgeport?
Bridgeport, Connecticut.
Nice.
No.
No, not nice.
So here's the thing, right? Whenever you say Connecticut, oh, it's great, and you have this, the vision of where Phil Donahue lived and all this other stuff, and it's great, and it is. It's one of the 13 original colonies. It's fantastic. I grew up in the murder capital of New England, so wow. Bridgeport is the largest city. And it was, especially during the time that I grew up there, it was the most gang-infested. And it was kind of like Australia, where everything outside is trying to kill you. As I explained to my kids, that was my reality.
Wow.
So it was, from a formative experience, I learned a lot about life very soon, strictly from a survival aspect.
Okay. I had no idea.
Yeah.
I mean, Bridgeport sounds like a quaint town.
Oh, it's in Fairfield County. It's wonderful. Fairfield County is home to, again, Greenwich and Fairfield and wonderful, wonderful areas. And Bridgeport is great, don't get me wrong, and I am so grateful to be from there.
Yep. And where'd you go to school?
So I went to, I'm gonna start from the very beginning. I went to St. Patrick's Elementary for 1st through 8th grade.
Okay.
And then I went to Notre Dame Catholic High School in Fairfield after that. And then I went to Providence College. So 16 years of Catholic school. But funny enough, and we're talking about tell me about yourself. Early on in a decision-making standpoint, and by the way, I really just want to watch your reaction after getting your first bite. Are we good? Is that all right? You need a cigarette? So
that's a really good burger right
all
there.
right. Yes.
The more you talk, the more I can eat.
There you go. I got you covered, right? But my grammar school, and again, grateful that I was able to have those formative years. But it was funny growing up. It was in a very urban environment, and we had multiple crack houses around the perimeter of the school.
Wow.
And so on certain days during the month, you would have people walking like zombies. And whenever our ball would go over the fence, because we just had it was a parking lot surrounded by fence, it was all concrete.
Yeah.
We would avoid them like zombies in The Walking Dead, literally
Wow.
like zombies in The Walking Dead. So I got desensitized to a lot of things very early.
Okay.
And but it was funny because in 8th grade, the decision of where to, what are you going to do for high school came up. And Central High School in Bridgeport, it was right across the street from the jail, was where I would go if I went to public school. Now, in schools nowadays, you have metal detectors and you might have a security guard. There was a police substation in the school. not a security office. It was like legit police substation.
Wow.
Because of the violence that would happen to the teachers getting pulled out of the classrooms, like no lie, right? And so I had a decision to make, and that decision at that point in time was, go there and chance will happen, or I can go to a private or Catholic high school. And so I took the test, applied, and whatever. And in order to go there, I ended up having to work 2 jobs. It was a conscious decision at, 13 years old. Am I going to, that's work. And, I got to take the city bus to get there and all those things. Yeah. So I worked as it was work crew. So I worked as a janitor in the school from, when school ended till about 4:30, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Then my mom would pick me up. I would do my homework in between there and going to Stop and Shop and working at a grocery store till like 9 odd at night. So it was a very conscious, intentional decision because the alternatives weren't great. And I think that probably, again, in a formative decision-making standpoint, that leaves, I could see those things kind of burning the boat, right? Not leaving yourself a plan B. That I see is played out later in my life. So coming out of high school. So in high school, I was in all AP and high honors classes, and education was my way out, right?
Okay.
And I knew that I needed to get out in order to fulfill whatever potential I thought I might have had. And school was going to be it. And the only way I was going to college was if I got a full ride. So thankfully, I did, and I got a full ride at Providence College, and went up there. Wasn't very intentional about where I was going to school, which if I had to do it over, and I certainly tell all the students that I talk to, be really intentional about where you're going. Yeah. You look into it. I just looked out that it worked out well for me.
Yeah. So how did you get into, first job out of college? Did you fall into recruiting? Did you see somebody in recruiting? Is that where you started?
Totally. So kind of like anybody in recruiting, or most I should say, now probably, again, people are more intentional, but I fell into it. So long story short, right after graduation, I ended up calling up a Fortune 500 global staffing firm looking for a job, really, as a temp, right? So I called up, and the person I spoke to answered the phone, said, well, we don't really have anything for marketing majors, but you sound really interesting, because we just engaged, right?
That's right.
Why don't you come in and talk? So I had a day of interviews there. That went well. I met like 4 people that day, and the last person was the area manager that had to give the final blessing. And I remember he walked in to the interview and said, hey, listen, you seem great. Everybody seems to like you. It's too bad we don't hire new grads. I was like, oh, really? 30 minutes later, I walk out of there with an offer. So
Nice.
it was great. It was just, that's kind of how that story went. And then, honestly, I took good notes, did what I was told, was too scared to do anything other than that.
Yep.
And things worked out well.
Was it, did you enjoy it? Was it inspiring? Was it challenging? I mean, because you stayed in it for...
No, it was terrifying because there was no plan B. I didn't have any other support. There was no family to go back. Like that situation was, I either make it or I live under a bridge. And so I literally did what I was told. But I worked scared for the first year and change. But what I enjoyed was I was talking to people. It was very voyeuristic in the sense that I'm getting peeks into what makes people tick and why they do what they do. And I was learning so much about business. Yeah. And that really intrigued me. And that whet my appetite to just learn and do more.
So you were there that first job. We can say it's Robert Half.
Robert Half.
Yeah. So 7 years.
7 years and 4 days.
But who's counting? Except you.
Yeah, me.
So when you think about that time, do you recall, I want to hear about maybe passion and purpose. I mean, was this even formulating? Because the way you describe high school and college was pretty intentional. Mm-hmm. So were you thinking about a job that was like, hey, I want to make a difference and I want to be passionate about it? Or was it just like, hey, it's a job, pays pretty well, learning, it's challenging. Was that good enough?
So, funny enough, back then we used to cut checks for our temporary consultants out of the office, right? And they would come in after work, I think it was a Wednesday, whatever day during the week. And I remember this is where it connected the dots. The first check that I actually handed out for somebody that I had placed, I remember he came in and he said, thanks so much. And here I am I volunteered to stay late. It was my turn, whatever.
Right.
And I'm handing out the checks and checking them off the list. And up to that point, it was just process and transaction and do what you're told, and hopefully the result will come. But when he said to me, thank you so much. My daughter's birthday is next week. Now I can get her the bike that she wanted.
Wow.
Everything at that point changed for me. And so luckily that was within my first 60 days. Everything from that point on was connected to that. So everything that I did, and I always, from that point on, whether or not I was going to directly impact them by getting them a job, I knew that they were A, not a transaction, and B, it wasn't just about them. Because there's a cascade of people behind them that are attached to my effort and my result in helping them.
Sure.
They're paying a mortgage, they're feeding their kids and all those other things, right? So to me, that mission was made very, very clear up front, and I was dealing with people. It wasn't, so I really I didn't see the transaction piece after that.
So did you interpret that as, look, I mean, you're feeding families, which is great. Every time you place somebody, you're feeding a family. Mm-hmm. Did you interpret that as, hey, this is cool, really like that, but did it turn into you called it a mission, did it turn into a passion for you, and you kind of latched onto that?
Yeah,
and you
100%.
said, this is what I need to follow. This is what I'm called to do.
Yeah, there was at that point, there was nothing else that I could see, that I'd be remotely qualified for. I still don't think I'm qualified for what I do. But there was nothing else that I thought would fully actualize the tools that I was given and born with and honed. Because here's the thing, and I remember Bruce coming home on one break from college and was hanging out with a friend of mine from growing up. And I remembered saying, there's so much parallel between, for lack of a better phrase, being in the streets and in what I see and do.
Yep.
Because that is all about connections, who you know, how you can connect people, and you've got to be streetwise and a conversationalist to survive.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right.
And I see that has never left me. And that, again, reading in between the lines, understanding what people are trying to say but can't say because of their filters.
Yep.
That, you have to read situations growing up that have pretty dire consequences for you given this, set of circumstances.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is, and I want to draw the connection, if there is one, between what the work you were doing individually as a recruiter, placing people and the lives you are impacting, and the organization. So were you equally inspired by what the organization was doing? Did you see that as something that was supporting your mission, or is it just could have been any organization as long as you could do what you were doing?
That's a good question. I would say I was enabled by the organization.
And probably really trained very, very well. They've got great tools there.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But I would say that more enabled, and my learning process was accelerated just by scale and volume. And so I learned, it was dog years, right? So what I learned in my first year, you would have to just because of sheer volume and intensity. Like that, I learned, so I got better for the people that I was helping faster. So I would say enablement. Beyond that, I mean, it was very much a production-driven environment. The human piece was there, but what not highlighted, that was just more of a personal thing.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to ask you a question about culture in about 1 minute. But in the meantime, I'm going to let you eat a little bit of that burger, and I'm going to do the same of my own, and we'll edit out this quiet part. I was thinking about this before we got together, and I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about culture. So I think I'm a little older than you, and I remember coming out of college, starting my first job, and there was no conversation about culture.
No.
And there was no, nobody really cared. Like you were excited about having a job, making money, and if you were lucky, you liked the people that you work with.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
Fast forward to now, there's a lot of chatter about culture and the value of it. And I'm not saying anything about this question, but I just want to ask it. We can talk about it. Is culture really as important, like inherently important and valuable to an organization, or is it just a temporary social construct that people like culture, so it's important to them, and maybe in the next 20 years something else is more important and culture just kind of falls by the wayside? Any thoughts on that?
It's a great question, and I would say, number one, it's here to stay, right, as the focus, but I completely agree with you on your initial read on what it was, because that's what I experienced. But here's what culture ultimately translates into. Now, I think it's a matter of perspective, right? Culture, to me, creates inertia. There is a difference between...
How?
Because there's a difference between people, a group, an individual, right, but a group, wanting to do something versus having to do something. Okay. It's a difference between someone buying from you or you selling to them. It's a difference between...
It's a push or pull, right?
It's a push or pull, yeah. Think about, like, when raising kids, if your child doesn't want to disappoint you, they act on their own in the best way based on the morals and values and direction that you've given them. To me, there's a parallel to culture there. So when you have people that are aligned in mission, purpose, and vision, and then act in the best interest in a supporting sense and manner, which to me that's what culture is, very collaborative. Now all of a sudden, you don't have to have a heavy hand of management. You don't have to continuously pump in and micromanage, but you have people taking up the initiatives on their own, and that can bring new and innovative ways of doing things based on them owning it. So it's almost that transference of ownership from a hierarchical structure to the individual. Now you got execution points all at the bottom versus just one at top.
Okay, all right, that's fair enough. So we'll come back to this in about 20 years, and we'll ask you the same question.
I'll be here.
And see if
hopefully Billy and NFA Burger will be as well.
That's right. All right, so you've really spent the last 25 plus years in sourcing, staffing, recruiting, consulting, that kind of big bucket. So what's going on in your life? What's going on? You got married somewhere along the way, had children. You're up to 3 as of last week, is what I...
3 as of last week, yeah.
Talk me through that.
So, the family, like, one of the things that I always knew that I wanted to be was a dad. Now, why? I don't know. You just you feel that whether or not it's real or right or whatever it was. But I was married. I had 2 kids. They're 22 and 21, about to be 23 and 21.
Wow.
And we just adopted, so my wife and I just adopted one of the kids that we've had, because we're a foster family.
Yep.
And we've had him for 3 years, well, just under 3 years, 1,063 days we've had him. And the adoption was finalized last week. I mean, the numbers are great, right? Yeah. Facts and binary, like it's
for a marketing guy, you're doing pretty well.
Yeah, dude, I never did it. For me, my life has been business. Business is numbers. Math, horrible. Business math, I will flip you ratios and P&Ls and all that back and forth. It just makes sense.
Yeah.
So there's that. So kids, as they say, they're a poor man's riches, right? Mm-hmm. They are everything, and they are the greatest sources of pain, joy, and frustration and love, all at the same time, depending on the day. But I think that's where we're at. So now, with my wife and I, my wife and I have been married 7 years now.
Okay.
We are going on 8, but we are now having the opportunity to take this little human and give him the best of us and all of the guidance, wisdom, advice, knowledge, and everything.
Yeah.
And at a mature level versus what I was trying to do back when I was 25 and having kids.
Yeah.
So,
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
You still have a lot of energy.
Yeah, there's no alternative. Again, there's no options. Burn the boats.
That's right.
What are you going to do? Just like go to sleep when you get a toddler crawling on you? No, get in it.
Yeah, you can't sleep through this one. That's pretty funny. So, going through your career, what do you see as, and if there were any that you would define it this way, any major trade-offs to accomplish goal, mission, purpose, and who bore the brunt of that?
So, life is never fair. We know that.
Never.
The reality is, when you are new in the world as an adult, and you've got multiple masters, so to speak, right? You've got family, be that your immediate family, friends, whatever.
Yep.
And you've got your career, and especially when you're in a place of responsibility, like being responsible for the well-beings of others, you begin to have this equation in your head as to what is, where you allocate your time now. I think early in life, if I draw this comparison, I think early in life, I was 100% in with my kids and wanting to be the best version of myself for them. But in order to do that, I had to provide. And so I would, prior to having kids, I'd be at the office half days. And by half days, I mean 12 hours easy. My old manager used to call the office, because it wasn't a direct. I would call the office, and I'd be answering the phone at 7 o'clock. He's like, "Go home, because if you answer this phone in 5 minutes, I'm firing you. You can't burn at both ends." And I was like, "All right, cool."
That's great.
So what I've learned over time is that you can have dual responsibilities, to your organization or your customers, clients, however you want to phrase that, and to your family. But the best version of myself happens when I am able to adequately compartmentalize and give all of my effort, energy, and value at one particular time when I'm engaging in that activity. In my work day, I have a very easy shutoff switch, because I am not defined by. I just really want to execute. I have a passion for what I do, and I love the people I do it with. But I'm also not willing to trade rolling around on the floor, playing trucks, and all those things. So I clearly define for myself what that looks like. Did I always do that? Well, I had to, because there wasn't any virtual world back then, right?
Yeah,
so I was in the office, and when I wasn't in the office, I was at home.
Right.
But it was just, what it looked like was long commutes into the office in Boston or somewhere in Massachusetts. Never missed anything that my kids did, but man, was I spent. Because if I've got an hour, 45-minute commute one way, going 100 miles an hour during the day, there wasn't a lot left for me at the end.
Yeah. And a part of me, and this might just be old-fashioned, that, a balanced life when you're young, I guess that's great. But, I think there's a part of your career where you just have to pay
Oh, yeah.
pay the dues, right? And that's not a balanced life. And there's nothing wrong with that. But to expect that, from day one, I think it's...
You haven't earned the right.
Yeah. I mean, I say that, and I believe that. But I'm not sure it would be universally true or accepted.
But I think, listen, and like I said, going back to growing up, I wouldn't want my kids to grow up and go through this stuff that I went through and saw, right?
Yeah.
However, I wouldn't trade any of it because it gives me a different perspective.
Right.
And that's material, right? So, now the challenge is to translate lessons learned into this new generation that, I mean, you always want your kids to do better than you did, right?
Right.
Not having to do that. So it's that weird balance.
Well, you wouldn't trade it because it turned out good, right? So
At
if
times,
you
yeah.
ended up in jail, you might have a different perspective and would have traded it.
Yeah.
But you can't architect that for your kids either.
No, I found
Like
that
it just
out.
happens, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of hard. That's hard to say and universally apply. Like, and we've both been in the recruiting business, and you can probably count many times when your client said, "Man, if I could find a Marine,
Oh, yeah.
right, who's been through the war and came out okay."
Yep.
So there's value in that, in going through the valley that capitalism loves all day long. They want to buy that, but most people don't want to go through that.
Yeah, forged in fire, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's good to be behind you, but nobody wants to do that.
Yeah, but listen, you that is in front of you no matter whether you want it or not. It's a matter of how you process. And I think that's one of the skills that you will only learn through experience. That's not theory, right? It's all practical application.
Yep.
God, man plans, God laughs, right? That thing.
Right.
No matter what your path that you architect, you're not the controlling hand in that. And life throws you curveballs. To touch into the kids and the management thing, my daughter got diagnosed with osteosarcoma when she was 15.
How long ago was that?
2018. So she finished treatment 5 years ago this month.
Wow.
So that was, and it's bone cancer and it's rare and all of these things. So like whatever you thought you had in mind, listen,
Right.
February 2nd, 2018, I'm sure I had a complete vision. February 3rd was very different, right?
Yeah.
And what that was, and so in that time, and being in it's a very fast, very heavy, very brutal treatment in for chemotherapy and surgery. But in that time, where are my responsibilities? Well, I can't let my professional life lack because guess what then? There's nothing else there, right? So my wife and I somehow were able to adequately compartmentalize. We took non-remote jobs that we had. We were able to work from the hospital on the days that we were in. I ended up getting a promotion. She ended up getting promoted. We grew our careers while we are the most sidetracked you ever could be, which is insane, right? When you think about it.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things, and that's not a brag or boastful, but it's just illustrating a point of saying, without your approach and unless you completely know yourself and have faith in things other than your own hand, some of that stuff you can't plan for that,
Right.
There's only 350 400 cases of that a year in the U.S.
And why would you want to, right? Practically speaking, I mean, there's 1,000 things that could happen to us, right? So why would we plan?
Yep.
You just can't live that way,
Uh-uh.
right? So, but you had choices of how you and your wife had choices of how you would respond to that.
Did we?
You did. So sure you did. You could have lashed out. You could have gone inside. You could have been angry. You could have been resentful. You could have been a lot of things. But you turned that stress, that challenge into energy to move forward. Is what I'm hearing. It could have, immobilized.
Yeah, but none of that is useful.
I know
right?
I hear that, and that's very intellectual of you. But life isn't always quite that elegant that we can just dissect it that way from the outside looking in, like we're living it. So that first week of the situation, you weren't like, "Hey, honey, I've got a plan here. I've decided. Here's what we're going to,
No.
and we're just going to go through it this way. And I see a promotion in your future. This is all going to be great."
Yeah.
No, this stuff weighs us down in real ways, right? So you had a choice. So how did you navigate that? How did you? I mean, I just want to dig into that a little bit deeper.
Sure.
When those dark times come, or while you were walking through them, again, you had a choice of how you would respond. Either you'd be a victim.
Oh yeah, no.
Or you'd kind of see the bigger picture.
Yeah, great question. And here's the thing, and I think this goes to, and for me it all goes back to Socrates, right? Know thyself, or Socrates for fans of Bill and Ted. But that part, like, that isn't in the DNA. It's literally just never a conscious thought. And it's been to my detriment at sometimes. But, like...
Why isn't it a thought? Like, what about you?
Just, like, quitting?
Yeah, like, why not? Who taught you that? Who said that it was important to respond?
I couldn't point to what... Okay, so here, you know what? You just tapped into something. When, let me see, in 2011, I broke my femur.
Wow.
And largest bone in your body.
Yes, it is.
And it hurts a lot.
And it hurts when it breaks.
Oh, let me tell you. But that rehab was, it was tough because not just broke femur, but I tore everything in my knee, meniscus, everything, right? So coming back, learning to walk and all that stuff was hard. Then as part of my physical therapy, like I did as much as I could on my own to rehab. Then I got into CrossFit, and that helped a tremendous amount, got me a long way.
Yep.
And then some guys at the gym brought up this event called a Go Ruck Tough. And I'm like, ooh, what's that, right? And what it was 12 hours of absolute thrashing by Special Forces cadre that I thought were trying to kill me. And so what that was, and I remember in the first 5 hours it was the welcome party, where and the whole time you're doing it with 45 pounds on your back, and the first thing they do is make you do like 100 push-ups, and it's just, you're smoked, right? And the entire rest of the time it's 2 a.m. at Piedmont Park in Atlanta. They're strobing your eyes, scaring the absolute hell out of you because these are intense people. But what I realized after getting through that, and I mean, it's stupid, you get a patch. It's not stupid, it's great, but you get a patch. But the one thing that I realized was that I won't quit and I won't break. And so what that did was, I'm like, and I still have that patch. That patch will get buried with me. You have to sign a death waiver and all these other things because it's cool. But part of that was the lesson I learned, the takeaway. And I was going through I was going through a lot of stuff personally, divorce and all that. I won't break, no matter what. And no one is going to be there to tell me, please don't break. That was what I was made of.
That's good.
So I kind of circle back to those two things.
Okay. So how did that experience with your daughter and kind of an upheaval in your life and everything, right? Mm-hmm. How did it reframe the way you look at relationships, the way you work, your family, the way you engaged with them, mm-hmm. with friends, coworkers?
Yeah. There are things that matter and things that don't. And that list, it's a very simple list. And everything else can be white noise. You have to put it in its place and perspective and compartmentalize to some degree. But to see the, number one, I think my wife would say the same, the absolute compassion and good that we saw in everyone in our community, it's shown a light on that. And so you go, because you ask the question of, are people innately good or innately bad with good and whatever. I think there's definitely good. So I approach everyone with a streetwise eye, but knowing that there's good inside everybody.
Yeah.
And the well-intentioned people are a godsend. I also learned the importance of self-reliance because no one is infallible. And there were there were numerous occasions in the medical setting that if we were not there, bad things would have happened because the chain of information and communication wasn't always optimal. So we also learned that your capacity is always greater than what you think. So your mind will quit before your body. That's what I've learned.
Yeah.
But that whole, like, your ability to carry a heavy load is much greater than you can imagine. So that whole, like, God gives you only what you can handle. Trust me, there were multiple times when I was like, seriously, there's more? More? Really? But then the empathy. And just knowing and understanding that we have a finite time with the people that we love and the people that we interact with. And some of the times, like some of the interactions we had when, like, Cure is a great nonprofit in the, I think they're national, but they would provide meals in the hospital for families. And I'm like, y'all don't realize, but for the hour and change that you're here, giving us peace of mind of not having to think about something like, oh yeah, we got to eat.
Yeah.
That was, so even in very digestible pieces, people can impact you to a tremendous degree just out of the goodness of their hearts.
So along those lines, what guardrails have you kind of put into your life? I mean, because you've gone through a lot, you've reframed for the better, you've adjusted for the better. What guardrails have you put in place to kind of stay the course of what you've learned?
Yeah, I think I can say that I've got a absolute laser focus and on my compass bearing for where I'm going and who I'm going to be, right? And this is where, again, nobody should be defined by what they do or whatever, but for who I am and who I want to be for those that depend on me or anybody that I interact with, I am crystal clear on what that needs to look like in order for me to sleep at night and be happy with myself and to serve the purpose that I've been given.
That's great. So what's the kind of biggest challenge you're facing right now in your life? Work-wise or family or?
Do I send you the copay or do I send it to my my insurance company? No, so at this point, and it's funny, I was actually thinking about this on the way here, outside of just thinking about this burger and these tots. But I think that for me now, literally taking stock of what I've done, I tell my kids I got more yesterdays than tomorrows, right? Hopefully that's not the case. It might not be. But I really want to make sure that I fully actualize whatever potential that I have, right? And I want to impact the most amount of people in the best way possible. I want to be the best version of myself for my wife, for my kids. I want to provide that North Star compass for how my kids measure other people, and I want to be that example. And we're the sum total of our experiences. I've got a few experiences under my belt, and I don't want any of that to be for naught. And so, honestly, as I look at and I map out the rest of my time, I really want to make sure that I pay homage to all the stuff that I've been through and help my kids and anybody else that I can to navigate and interpret and really experience without having the downside effects as much as possible. So pass on whatever wisdom I can.
Yeah. So, and I hope this podcast will be part of that, support that mission.
Amen.
So, shifting gears a little bit to kind of industry.
Yeah.
What do you think, kind of riff a little bit about the future of work. Mm-hmm. Where do you see that going?
Having the perspective, because I think so much of life is perspective, right? Anything else is just theory, and I really live in the world of practical application. As a recruiter or someone in the talent field, nothing that we do can be based on theory. I can't read a survey and say, oh, well, this is the way it is because I read it in a book or BuzzFeed gave this quiz. It's not that at all, right? We literally do not get paid if what we say doesn't work, and the advice and guidance we give doesn't work. Right. We do that to our clients, we do it to candidates, and the like. So I think what has happened in going through and seeing multiple recessions and multiple recoveries, boom, bust, from the dot-com turn of the century, I feel old when I say that, to the virtual and digital revolution that we're in today, I'm going to say that, number one, choice is in full effect and won't go anywhere again. I'm going to say
employee choice.
Choice in general.
Okay.
And I'm going to say that's on both sides, right? The employee and the employer.
Okay.
Because you could load shift, you can shift share, you can move. This is a global, in a knowledge-based economy, the world is literally your oyster.
Yeah.
So it's funny when I talk to high school students and I tell them, listen, it's completely unfair for someone to say to you, in high school you need to be starting to track towards what you're going to be, for the next 50 years. But that's the reality, right? You don't have the luxury of time. You can't graduate college working at a pizza shop or a bar, come out with a newly minted degree and say, hey, pay me $60,000. There's no equity in that.
Right.
So I think in a knowledge-based economy, choice is there because on the employee side, if you don't like your situation, there's going to be options for you, right? So optionality is huge.
Yep.
And I think intention and alignment with the individual, not just the skill set, I think that's going to be where things go. And that's where you always get exponential results out of it. Mm-hmm. So if someone is fully actualized, they are intentional, they are pursuing anything about their craft, even outside of working hours, that's when you know that you're in the right space.
Yeah,
and that's
sure.
where you're going to perform better than the next person.
All right. So, and I know you do career management.
Yeah.
How do you anticipate, or how is your career management, I'll just say consulting or anything that you kind of do,
mm-hmm.
whether it's formal or informal, how do you see that changing?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is the awareness. It's kind of like when Neo got pulled out of the Matrix, right? And
my favorite movie, by the way.
Is it really? We didn't even rehearse that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But when he got unplugged and pulled out of the Matrix, all of a sudden there's a reality that he is aware of. And what that looks like is, in years past, you would depend on the organization to drive your career.
Right.
You would depend.
That's right.
You would put your 25 years and retire with your gold watch, and you were good, right?
Yep.
Nowadays, if you are not self-managing, no one is going to look out for you but you. And so for some that's scary, but for others it really should be empowering. And what that does is makes you hyper aware of any skill gaps, knowledge gaps, experience gaps, and you seek those out. Number one, you're going to become more valuable to your current employer. Number two, you're going to drive a lot of value and probably invent some roles for yourself, right? Number three, you're going to be a resource and potentially pioneer in other areas in your industry.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So, almost we're on a final approach here.
Gotcha.
So, would you say, looking across your career, it could be now, it could be later,
mm-hmm.
Or at any time, would you say that you're consuming your career, or your career is consuming you?
I love that. I would
define it any way you want.
Yeah. I would say that I am in a space of alignment right now.
Okay.
Where I am really well balanced, and I'm not consumed by my career, but I am impassioned by what I do. Like, I love what I do.
That's right.
I love I love what it means. And it's the human capital space is the only space for me, because people is what I invest in, and their stories and what it means. And I know at the end of my days, there's going to be a trail of tens of thousands of people that, for some reason or another, hopefully I've made their lives better as a result. So,
awesome.
Again, but balance between the personal and professional, and that's what that, with my daughter's illness a bunch of years ago, that pendulum ain't swinging too far the other way ever. Yeah. Because that's the stuff that matters.
That's great. Now, do you see another chapter in your life, maybe outside of consulting, staffing? I mean, like what you're doing now? Yeah,
for sure. Well, I think it's always going to be centered around that. But
okay,
I think the spirit of giving, the spirit of helping, that's never going to leave. So I think and again, that's just how we're wired. Like, my wife is really involved in the community where we are. I am as well. I'm on our search and rescue team, and it's just one of those things that, like, that whole protecting those that can't protect themselves. And that might be it doesn't have to be in a literal sense, but in a figurative sense. If I could deliver anything to help someone insulate the biggest asset that they have, which is their earning power, or feeling engaged in their, like, wasted potential is just the worst thing in the
Yeah.
world, right?
Right.
So, somebody, some divine spirit put it in you, tap it, right? And when you are able to help someone see what that is and then feel the benefit of fully actualizing that and being proud of what
That's
they've
great.
done and do,
Yeah.
that's the stuff, no matter what it is. But by the way, at the end of my days, I still want to work the drive-thru in McDonald's as a job. I'm not even kidding you. Like, I dead serious. Like that, I would have so much fun doing just because I think people
That's
are cool.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. All right, you ready for this next section? We're going to the lightning round.
Let's hit it.
You ready?
Go.
Okay. Favorite Netflix series?
There's so many. I just finished Longmire. It was really cool.
That was good.
Yeah.
Love it. All right. If you had to go, if you could go anywhere in the world for lunch tomorrow, where would you go?
Shoot. I'm going to say Wyoming for a bison burger.
Okay. All right. And if you could have coffee with any historical figure, who would it be?
If Jesus drank coffee, I'm with him.
I bet he does.
There you go.
What would be the title of the book of your biography?
Good God. Not that. Yeah, I would say Hard Lessons for a Good Life.
Okay. We'll go with that. Last question. If you had to choose, living in the same house for the rest of your life or traveling free without a home?
Traveling free without a home. Amen. There's a great big world out there with lots of food.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, listen, that's it. You don't have to think anymore. We're all done here. So,
Bruce, it's been a pleasure.
Anthony, this has been just awesome. The burger was fantastic. The these
Tots.
little tater tots. You know, old school is back again.
I'm telling you.
This is fantastic. So, thanks for taking the time. Really enjoyed this, and I'm excited. I'm excited when this thing comes out.
Thank you. Me too. Appreciate you, man.
All right.
Thank you for joining us on Consuming Careers. If you've enjoyed the show, please click the follow button in your podcast app so you won't miss any of our future episodes. And if you have a minute, write us a review. We truly appreciate hearing from our listeners. And as always, I'm Bruce Smith, and you've been listening to Consuming Careers.
Tell me about the tattoos. You got a sleeve there.
Never.
What
in
is
my-
that?
Guardian Angel.
Okay.
And then up here, can't get it all the way up, but Face of God.
That is awesome.
Yeah. So never in my life was a tattoo person because I never had anything that I needed irremovable from my body. What I found is that you go through certain things in your life and you're like, that's my story.
Wow.
Yeah, that means something.